Thank you very much, Minister Naledi and the program director. They seem not to greet in this conference, but let me say good morning.
Good morning.
In our languages, Dumelang, Bonjour, Bon dia, Assalamu alaikum. Our program director, my colleague, Minister of Home Affairs, Dr. Naledi, my colleague, the Deputy Minister of Zusa, Deputy Minister of Home Affairs, and our dear Executive Chairman of ID for Africa, Dr. Atik, senior government officials present here this morning, representatives of international agencies and development organizations, industry experts, supporters of this important initiative, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm indeed pleased to have the honor of addressing this auspicious gathering, the 5th annual meeting of the ID for Africa movement. Having served as Minister of Home Affairs several years ago, I'm fully alert to the importance of identity registration for all people of the world, but most particularly of importance on our continent, where we lack attention fully to these services. My attention was drawn to the importance of identity registration when I was addressing a public gathering during my stint as Minister of Home Affairs. And as the course of the gathering proceeded, the public had an opportunity to pose questions and make comments. Out of the large gathering, a gentleman stood up and said, "Minister Pandor, I'm addressing you this morning, but according to your department, I'm a dead man. How are you going to address my particular client?" This was a most startling statement to hear in a public meeting. I discovered subsequently that there are many such people affected by the inadequacy of our registration systems. And it is therefore extremely important that we, through meetings such as this one, ensure that the dignity of our citizens and of all Africans and all people of the world is restored through us being efficient, competent, and of service to the people. Having said that, let me preface my remarks by saying, if in our endeavor to ensure full identity services and civic rights for the citizens of all our countries, if we do not address the subject of gender equality, we will not achieve our objective. And so, the absence or inadequate representation of women in the work that we do undermines their status as full citizens of the world. And so I do urge those who lead all organizations in this regard to ensure that women are properly and fully represented. We are, after all, more than half the proportion of the world, and therefore should occupy positions of power. Well, this annual gathering has, I'm told, become an appropriate place for sharing experiences and best practices. It allows for the identification of challenges in the context of development that confronts us, and also allows for the setting of identity priorities for the identity-serving community. I'm extremely pleased to note that this meeting has attracted over 1,500 delegates, and I'm told from 95 countries in total, which includes, as Dr. Atik showed us, 50 African nations and over 650 decision makers from a cross-section of government stakeholders. This is truly a very, very important mix of stakeholders and a significant gathering, which is sure to lead to excellent results. We are especially pleased at the participation of representatives of various international organizations, including the United Nations Development Programme, the United Nations Children's Fund, the United Nations Statistics Division, the United Nations High Commissioner on Refugees, the World Bank. It's one of the few occasions I say we're pleased with the World Bank. The African Development Bank, the Asian Development Bank, and my colleagues in the World Bank should not take that negatively. I know today's World Bank is vastly different from the one we used to complain about when we were students. The International Civil Aviation Organization and the International Organization for Migration. An amazing collection of expertise. We note with appreciation the participation of government representatives from partner countries such as the Netherlands, Denmark, France, India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Philippines, and Japan. Now, the challenge of ensuring efficient, accurate, and consistent civic registration on our continent was raised very, very critically at the first conference of African ministers responsible for civil registration in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, in August 2012. This was organized jointly by UNICA, the UN Economic Commission for Africa, the ADB, the African Union Commission, as well as the Federal Republic of Ethiopia. The 2010 conference sought to explore ways of improving civil registration and vital statistics systems in Africa, a critical focus area it had extracted from a regional workshop back then on civil registration and vital statistics systems, which was convened in Tanzania over 10 years ago in 2009. We as South Africa have made significant progress on civil registration and vital statistics. And we are somewhat, I think, of a model that could be mirrored or drawn on, given our rate of coverage, our extensive outreach programs, our attempts at community participation, because we make an error if we assume that our people understand what we're trying to do when we seek to register them. And thus community participation has to be an important cog of the undertaking that we set in motion. We've also done a great deal with respect to online birth registration in our health facilities, and I shall return to this in a moment. In terms of our policy, civil registration denotes continuous, permanent, compulsory, and universal recording of the occurrence and characteristics of vital events pertaining to the population as provided through our various laws, our regulations, and in accordance with the various requirements of our government and countries with which we relate. In 2012, South Africa hosted the Civil Registration and Vital Statistics Conference in Durban. Our countries on the continent were encouraged to continue developing policies, systems, and legal regulatory framework. Many countries have made significant advances, but our work is not yet complete. This is evidenced by the themes of this very meeting of colleagues. We all have public institutions that are responsible for the public administration and social service provision in our countries. But we don't yet have full personal data and full information necessary for managing and ensuring access to public services and public resources. We are thus very, very pleased that ID for Africa has broadened the scope of its work to address these inadequacies. Meeting has grown to include the stakeholders I have referred to from a range of sectors. It also has drawn in the private sector, as well as various international donors and agencies. We welcome this cooperation because we believe collaboration among these stakeholders will create the outcomes that we desire and will serve as a foundation for supporting us to achieve the objectives that form the deliberative attention of this conference. We believe that ID for Africa has a role to play in promoting transparent and responsible adoption of digital identity in various countries on the continent. Since its inception in 2014, this forum has developed the reputation of one that provides a platform for government agencies to develop expertise, to share experience, and to work at building capacity around the important subject of how digital identity can support a wide range of government services for citizens and for accelerating development broadly. I wish to state that one of the gaps that we do confront is the inadequate registration of those who come to find solace in our countries. We have been particularly inadequate in registering those who are asylum seekers or refugees, or indeed economic migrants. And we need to develop a methodology which allows them to have status and identity in our country if our true endeavors are to be successful. So for me, while ID for Africa is correct in focusing on citizens, the key issue is anyone, as Dr. Naledi said, who is in our country must be able to be identified and should have a legal status. Otherwise, we render our people stateless on our continent, and that cannot be acceptable. So I do think there's much more that we need to do. I hope that this 5th annual meeting will assist ID for Africa to pursue its primary objectives, which include the following: promoting digital identity to enhance people's lives from birth to death. Second, providing a platform for South-South knowledge transfer and facilitating active Africa-centered engagement for the identity community. The overarching theme for this year's annual meeting is identity ecosystems for service delivery. It affirms that identity is not only a right, but a tool that can be utilized to empower citizens and to promote socioeconomic development and provision of quality services. We as a country and government are working very hard to develop integrated, secure, digital identification systems. Traveling this road has not been easy for South Africa. Our work in this regard started in earnest after the dawn of democracy in 1994. I always remind our brothers and sisters to recall that we are just a child, a mere 25-year-old democracy. We had inherited, upon achieving democracy, a fragmented civil registration system, largely predicated on a divisive racial discourse. It was a discriminatory system designed to deny Africans in our country of citizenship. Only a few million of our white citizens in the country enjoyed access to acceptable levels of civic services. At the inception of democracy, our immediate task was to begin the process of forging a common, non-racial, non-sexist national identity in an endeavor to deconstruct the civic divisions and inequalities which were racial of our colonial and apartheid past. Accordingly, as one of the hallmarks of the democratic era and our transformation agenda, we introduced a common, compulsory identity document for all citizens to be held irrespective of race, and established a single National Department of Home Affairs. Now, can you imagine previously we had departments dealing with each ethnic group and race in our country, and we had to bring them together to be one department serving the entire nation. The ID, popularly known as the Green Barcoded ID Book of 1986, was then issued to all the people of our country. They now enjoy the right that they had been denied for many, many years. We succeeded then in providing a common ID for all citizens and officially opened doors for them to exercise their rights and to access services, including registering the birth of their children. They could access social grants, they could open for the first time bank accounts, they could use their IDs to seek employment, and of course to enroll at school. Now my colleague, Minister Motsoaledi, has got an important task he's been given by the government, which is to ensure that children come to South Africa from other countries to study in our schools should also enjoy civil registration. And I'm sure he's going to succeed in that particular task, so that they are not rendered stateless, Minister, by us and our systems. Over the years, as South Africa, we have learned that the full data from civil registries comes when they are properly integrated with government systems. So for example, integrated with our statistics institutions, or with our population register, or our national ID system, and integrated with our voter registration systems. It is possible, we've now seen, to do this through 21st century civil registration and vital statistics systems, drawing on the availability, which is so pervasive, of information and communication technology, and on innovations linking various records with civil registries. When the birth of a South African child is registered, a child's name and birth data are linked to an identity number immediately, and a record is created on the National Population Register. This gives the child an identity at birth, with all constitutional rights and obligations accompanying such status. Our Department of Home Affairs has embarked on a process that seeks to ensure a single entry point into the National Population Register, and this point is at birth. To this end, our law demands that parents register their newborn babies within 30 days of birth. And dear Minister Naledi, having served as Minister of Home Affairs, I can now tell you, you can forget your Christmas, because you've got to go and register all the children born on Christmas Day. Once a child has a birth certificate, that child can be issued with a passport and can enjoy access to services offered by other government departments, such as I've mentioned, health and education. We've entered into a memorandum of understanding with our country's health department with the purpose of ensuring births at health facilities are registered. To date, the Department of Home Affairs has connected 391 health facilities in public hospitals. So mothers at these facilities can now register their children immediately, and they receive the birth certificates before leaving the facility. Home Affairs South Africa is currently engaged in a pilot to automate registration of births, marriages, and deaths. It prints names of parents in their children's passports for ease of travel. As part of our civil registration objectives toward the achievement of our Vision 2030, as outlined in our country's National Development Plan, our country is expected to be at 90% of birth registration by 2030, and to ensure 100% a decade or so later. In the 2018-19 financial year, we reached 85.7% on birth registration. So I believe 100% is doable before 2030. As with other organizations, our policies have evolved over the years. Systems that were considered to be state-of-the-art during the 1990s have proven inadequate to meet the ever-changing needs of our department as we've become more experienced at this effort. Thus, in 2011, Home Affairs initiated a system-wide modernization program. Since then, tremendous progress has been made in creating a responsive, credible, digital, paperless, and reliable identification system along similar lines to those now proposed by ID for Africa. In July 2013, the Green ID book, which was manual and paper-based and thus open to severe manipulation, was replaced with a new smart ID card, which is an extremely secure identity card. The card has a readable and verifiable card chip and embedded biographic data. More than 13 million smart ID cards have been issued in the quest to replace around 38 million green barcoded identity books. The Smart ID card is an end-to-end process that is wholly automated. It is supported by a live capture system. Of the 412 Home Affairs offices in the country, 193 are modernized and can thus process the new Smart ID cards and machine-readable passports. So from this experience, Home Affairs has become better placed to argue for the adoption of identity ecosystems for service delivery as suggested by the conference theme. Digital transformation has shown us great potential exists within it to open new pathways towards smarter platforms and new ways of service delivery. The Home Affairs Department has introduced innovative models in this regard. It has launched an electronic platform, e-Home Affairs, through which persons can now apply for the new Smart ID cards and passports online from the comfort of their homes or offices by simply visiting the website. The e-Home Affairs portal was made possible by the partnership of Home Affairs with 4 major commercial banks in South Africa. They entered into an agreement in April 2016 and piloted in 13 branches in Gauteng and Western Cape. As we proceed to expand this initiative, we believe that we should pay attention to implementing a single source of information access about all clients, which would include biographic and biometric technologies. The new national identity system that South Africa seeks to build will serve as a master source for civics and immigration management, with key elements stated as the following. Records of persons throughout their lifespan, birth, marriage, and death records of residents, including citizens, permanent residents, asylum seekers, and refugees. Thirdly, all persons entering the country will have their biometrics captured during the visa application process or at the point of entry. Fourthly, processing and storing of asylum seekers and refugees applications, recording of visitors in as smooth a way as possible, and of course ensuring that if there's any person who's not recorded on our systems in the country, that we know who they are and where they are. This modernization of South Africa's Department of Home Affairs, once fully and successfully implemented, will re-engineer and automate most of the key processes of this department and yield a significantly enhanced identification system and service, and a credible national population register. We are really thrilled at the work that has been achieved by the Department of Home Affairs. We believe arriving at a point where we have a single view of Home Affairs clients, where we have integrity of Home Affairs data, where we have secure borders while absolutely embracing all visitors, where we have improved citizen and client experience, and where we have a citizen and client-oriented workforce, that all these objectives are achievable and will deliver the best service our country can offer. We must, however, ensure that we improve our interaction between us as the state, the citizen, and the visitor. We must be more customer-centered. We must ensure we have a secure environment. The digital opportunities offered by the fourth industrial revolution offer us a window into achieving these particular goals. Our ultimate goal, I'm sure as with all of us gathered here, is to utilize digital technology in bringing government services closer to people just where they live. We look forward then to seeing the sharing of experience with international agencies, with our private sector partners, with government representatives present here, on all the critical areas organized as thematic tracks for this 2019 annual meeting. I am really hopeful that ID for Africa will serve as a movement in Africa that will continue playing a pivotal role in empowering the identity community on our continent and, of course, our people, and play a role in promoting dialogue and knowledge exchange. After all, the time has come for us as Africans to do for ourselves and to do for ourselves really excellent. And as Dr. Attic has rightly said, as African countries, we are the ones who are best placed to deal with a myriad of identification challenges that confront us, while at the same time reinforcing our competence and capacities in this vital area of our work. I hope that this, your 2019 annual meeting, will build on the achievements of the fourth annual meeting, which was held in the Federal Republic of Nigeria in April last year. I hope you will do this by, among other things, assisting in defining a context for the adoption and enjoyment of responsible identity systems, including the development of appropriate legal frameworks, appropriate institutional arrangements, appropriate governance structures which include women, appropriate data protection, privacy, and appropriate regard to human rights. I wish to thank the leadership of ID for Africa for bringing to South Africa the 2019 engagement on the advancement of legal and digital identity. And I conclude by wishing you an excellent job on behalf of the people of Africa, and a conference whose deliberations will lead to concrete outcomes and concrete benefits for the people of our continent and the global community. I thank you and wish you well.